Welcome to the Good Old Football Podcast. I am your host, Matt Edwards. Week 6 is wrapped up, and it's wrapped up like way too many games has this year. Detroit, Green Bay on Monday night, just the officials once again impacting the game way more than they ever should. And here's the issue at this point, is when it happens, it's kind of like, yeah, that's the norm now. That's what we expect, is for them at some point to screw up. I'm recording this 20 minutes after the game, so we'll see if Matt Patricia goes after the officials. If you didn't see it, a couple of hands to the face calls on Detroit, one of them turning a Green Bay punt into a touchdown. Green Bay was down double digits in the fourth quarter, comes back and wins, including a beautiful Aaron Rodgers touchdown pass that is going to be on his highlight reel, but would not have happened if not for a call that everyone agrees shouldn't have been made. They saw something. I don't know if missaw is a word. They saw something wrong. They need an official who is upstairs, who is the head official, who just right away can look at that. It's one of those things, you don't need to stop play. You've got a 40-second game clock in between plays. This is a situation where that guy up there sitting in the booth eating some cheese popcorn can look and say, yeah, dude, bad call, reverse it. Just like that. Just like that. No need to go to the booth and get out the Microsoft Surface and all that. This can be a quick and easy process. How the NFL has failed to realize that, I don't know. I'm only a few blocks away from Park Avenue right now. Maybe I should go down there, get a cardboard sign and protest, tell them what's up. It's got to be fixed. I mean, this is a billion-dollar business. That's a road game that the Lions, I don't want to say they should have won it, because we all know how good Aaron Rodgers is. We all know he had the ability to win that game without any assistance. However, when you're playing at Lambeau Field in prime time against a Hall of Fame quarterback, you can't afford to have anything out of your control go against you. And that's what Detroit had to deal with last night. Like I said, we'll see if Matt Patricia goes after the refs. I think he should. I mean, and by the way, and we'll talk about Booger McFarland later in the show, but props to him. He went hard after the refs last night. Way too many analysts, and it's not the play-by-play guys. That's not their job. Their job is to explain what's going on. However, some of them do provide commentary as well. But props to Booger McFarland. He went hard at the refs last night. Obviously, as a former defensive lineman, he kind of sympathizes with those guys who are down in the trenches on the defensive side of the ball. But man, what a wreck. It is a mess right now when it comes to officiating in the NFL. Look, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know. Everyone can see it. And I've been saying for a couple years now that in a way, I feel bad for the officials because they are now having to deal with two things. One, kind of all at the same time, comes along high-definition television, so we can see every single molecule on the screen. And two, everyone has Twitter now. So in addition to us having this crystal clear picture of what's going on, we can all view the replays as many times as we want. Meanwhile, they're scrambling around down there trying to figure it out. So I get that part of it. I really don't blame the officials. I blame the NFL for not putting them in a better position to succeed. You combine the high-definition cameras that are now on the fields, along with the fact that everyone at home can see the replay on their cell phone sitting on their lap as many times as they want. Oh, and by the way, Roger Goodell is making about 8 rule changes every offseason for you guys to remember. Don't get them confused with any of the other ones. Just a difficult position for them to be in right now. That said, you're supposed to be the best at this in the world. Everyone has got to kind of figure this out. Again, I'm telling you guys something. I assume if you're listening to a podcast about the National Football League, you're all well aware of these things. But we're all also on the same page when it comes to the fact that this is our country's greatest issue right now. And whatever presidential nominee goes after it might get my vote. We'll see. Anyways, we're kind of a third of the way through the season, right? Week 6 is done now. There's 17 NFL weeks. And October, November is what we wait on, man. I mean, this is where we find out who the teams are. I think this time of the season is why the NFL regular season is so popular. Like right now, you can look at half the league and literally almost half of the teams in the NFL, you could make a case right now as to why you think they'll make a deep postseason run, maybe make it to the Super Bowl. This is why the NFL is so popular, man. This is the opposite of the NBA, right? Like NBA going into the season, at least in recent memory, you've got it down to maybe maybe 5 teams who can make it. Now look, obviously everyone's on New England, but we've seen crazier things happen by far. I counted 14 teams today. I wrote it down right here. 14 teams that I would not be shocked to see make it to the Super Bowl team, and there's only 12 spots in the playoffs. There's a team right now who is riding high. Maybe it was one of those 2 teams last night between the Lions and the Green Bay Packers. There's a team right now feeling good about themselves that will be sitting at home when that wild card weekend comes around. Now, December is kind of about being healthy, getting hot before the playoffs. By that time, a nice chunk of the league has been knocked out, and that's not to say the playoffs will be set, obviously, but October, November is where we see everyone establish themselves, as the football purists would like to say. And kind of my point in going into all this, and everyone kind of remembers this, I hope, otherwise you should, do better at remembering things. But so many teams this year, and a little bit last year, but specifically this year, slept on the preseason. And now when you kind of look around, it seems like September, the first full month of the regular season, the first month of the regular season, was a little bit of the preseason for some teams, kind of figuring things out. So many teams slept on it, and I get that. You don't want to get guys hurt, but at the same time, you can't play not to lose, per se. I mean, you look at the Broncos were a team I was looking at. If you listened to this podcast before the season, they were a team I thought could sneak into a wild card spot. They had a new head coach. They started 0-4. Now suddenly they've won 2 straight games against 2 quality opponents. I mean, they're not playing the Redskins and the Dolphins. I think it was the Titans and the Chargers they've beaten back-to-back games now. Suddenly they're starting to figure things out. The Minnesota Vikings. I mean, Vikings fans on offense, they were ready to launch Kirk Cousins into one of the 10,000 lakes, and my gosh, I hope that's the state with 10,000 lakes. I'm pretty sure it is. We've already went over state nicknames on this podcast, but they were done with him. They were ready to set him sail, and the Vikings are now clicking on offense all of a sudden. I think September, this is going to kind of be a reminder to teams that you don't just, I don't care, maybe there's a few veterans who have been in the league 8, 10, 12 years who can do this, but for teams setting so many guys in the preseason, sitting them down and not letting them play because of fear of injury, it takes time to get things together. On the other side, maybe some teams are not as good as we thought. Baltimore got praised early. We'll look at their wins later in the show. Those wins, trash. Some teams look good in the preseason. I mean, if you're listening, you have had a player or a unit in the preseason that you saw and you went, I'm pretty hyped about that, and then they fell apart once the season rolled around. You overreacted. We see that. Maybe we did that in September. Kansas City, still legit, obviously still a Super Bowl contender, still number 2 in the AFC to New England, but maybe the Colts have kind of laid a blueprint out there now. Maybe some teams now are realizing how to compete with them, how to slow them down. Detroit almost beat them. The Colts beat them, and then the Texans go in there and get a win. This is what I'm talking about. NFL, not for long. Things fall apart. And look, I get a lot of people complain about the preseason. Got an idea for you, Chief. Don't watch it. That's always drove me crazy. It happens in August. You know, that time when it's nice outside, when you can go do things. Don't watch the preseason if you don't like it. Its existence is good for the product you eventually consume. It's like stretching before you work out. You don't want to do it, but you know that in the long run, it's the right thing to do. It's going to feel better when what you're preparing for happens. So that's my spiel on that. I don't really have a way to wrap that up. Just that, October and November are where the work you put in shows up. And I mean, it's a never-ending process to be a successful NFL team. That's why the Patriots have made more trades than anyone over the last 10 years. Your team, and I've heard this about, working out and stuff before, not that I'm a workout dude, but your team is a sandcastle, right? If you're not constantly making it better because of the natural elements, it's going to get worse. You constantly kind of have to be molding it. Otherwise, you got wind, waves, a little kid comes through and steps on it, and you have to pretend not to be mad because you're a 46-year-old man and it's just a sandcastle. But anyways, that's why we've had one dynasty in the last 25 years, and it's a team that keeps taking care of itself nonstop, keeps molding and crafting and putting it together. It's hard to sustain success, and there's only one team we've seen do it. this century, in the last 25 years. And people forget, too, with New England. Obviously, I'm talking about the Patriots, but they went 10 years without a title between 2005 and 2014. Now, they made it twice. They, of course, had that undefeated regular season in 2007. They got beat by Eli Manning both times, which is, kind of looking at it now, amazing. But the fact of the matter is, you've always got to be making those little upgrades. And when you have the best quarterback of all time, that helps as well. But, I mean, you look at it, other than them, I mean, really the only other teams to come close to what you would consider dynasty, Pittsburgh and Seattle, right? I mean, they're both teams. Obviously, Ben out this year for Pittsburgh, so they're hurting. But those are teams that over the past 5 years, and I'd say Pittsburgh really over the past 15, since Ben Roethlisberger got there, they expect to be in the postseason every year. I have a lot of friends in Pittsburgh, and I remember being there and talking to some Steelers fans, and it was early in the season one year, and they said, yeah, we'll just have to see if such and such can sustain once they get to the playoffs. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, what it must be like to just have the expectation that you will be there. But they're right, they have been. The Steelers and the Seahawks over the past 15, 20 years are the only two teams, and really Seattle just started when they had that Super Bowl win against Denver and then lost to New England the next year, but have consistently been a team you feel confident will be in that postseason hunt since then. But New England's on a different level. But you look at it, these are all teams that have three things in common. A, Hall of Fame quarterback, Brady, Big Ben, Russell Wilson. B, always a solid defense, right, between the three. And then C, they're always making the little upgrades. You know what New England does? Pittsburgh doesn't make dumb moves. They get rid of guys when they should. Seattle adds little pieces like Will Dissly. We saw them go out and get Jimmy Graham. Dissly obviously hurt now. But Seattle does the little things, gets the right pieces there. Those are the three teams that really all NFL franchises should be able to look at and say, oh yeah, you got to constantly upgrade. Otherwise, you're going to fall into the trap that we've seen so many other teams do, like Cincinnati, really like Cleveland, like the Redskins, like the Dolphins, like the Jets, although the Jets had a nice bounce back Sunday. So many of those teams that kind of look to make the big splash rather than the small wave, and we see where that goes. Again, the Hall of Fame quarterback, the key piece. After that easy task, just kind of build around them. But it's a never-ending process, and the teams that are making the adjustments right now, that have made the adjustments throughout the year and don't get to September and say, all right, we're ready to go. The teams who are week by week, hour by hour, drive by drive in the game, making those adjustments, those are the ones who are going to last. Way too serious of a first segment for me, but that's okay. Speaking of segments, here's how I do this podcast. Throughout the weekend, really, between, maybe Saturday, somewhat Sunday, until Monday night, I kind of have bullet points that I want to hit on, and I write those down, and then I keep them in front of me when I'm doing this podcast, and I give out my opinion on them. I talk, I ramble, I say some stupid things. I appreciate you hanging in there with me. Here's three small things, kind of some factual things that I find interesting. If you follow me on Twitter, @MattEdwards, you know that I'm a nerd for the stats. I really enjoy those. So this segment is called 3 Things to Tell You. Very original, very clever, I know. Thing one, the Cleveland Browns could have as many wins at Halloween this year as they did last year under one Hugh Jackson, who, of course, if you ask any Cleveland fan, really held them back there for a few years. The Browns could have as many wins this Halloween as they did last year. They've got 2 wins right now. They have a bye this week, and then they're on to New England to face the Patriots, who are undefeated. Should they lose to New England, which I think we can all agree is likely, although we've seen crazier things happen. Should they lose at Foxborough, they'll be 2-5 at the end of October. Last year at the end of October, under Hugh Jackson, they were 2-5-1. Essentially the same record, same winning percentage. By the way, Baker Mayfield right now, and look, the guy has not been great. He's not had the luck on his side, but at the same time, when you run your mouth like you have, when you act like you're too cool for school, as they would say if you actually were too cool for school. Anyways, let me get to the point. Baker Mayfield has the 4th worst quarterback rating in the NFL so far this year among quarterbacks who have thrown at least 70 pass attempts. 4th worst. And it sounds even worse when I tell you which quarterbacks are worse than him. Only 3 of them. Luke Falk, the Jets' 3rd-string quarterback, who had to come in after Sam Darnold and after Trevor Siemian. By the way, coincidentally enough, when the Browns were getting one of their 2 victories this year in New Jersey, taking on the Jets. So 3 quarterbacks worse than him. 1, Luke Falk. 2, Ryan Fitzpatrick. And 3, Josh Rosen. Those 2, of course, the alternating quarterbacks of the hopeless Miami Dolphins. Now, this doesn't all fall on Baker. I mean, he's had some bad. That one to Hilliard the other day in crunch time at Seattle, or against Seattle. They were in Cleveland. Brutal. But at the same time, given the expectations, given the fact that he was a guy who a lot of people said, second-year quarterback, really making strides in the league, MVP candidate, Baker Mayfield has the 4th worst quarterback rating in the NFL after Week 4. Thing 2, when it comes to 3 things to tell you, Ezekiel Elliott carried the ball 28 times on Sunday, and still the Cowboys lost to the New York Jets. By the way, the Jets a completely different team with Sam Darnold, but Zeke got that big money over the summer, went and hung out in Cabo. Yeah, he hasn't broke a 20-yard run since Week 1 against the Washington Redskins. Good back, I like Zeke. Maybe the best back in football. Meanwhile, however, the San Francisco 49ers dicing people apart. Matt Breida and Rasheem Mostert both averaging about 50 yards a game, more than 50 yards a game really, more than 5 yards a carry each. Both undrafted guys. This is another one of those things. How long does it take for teams to figure out the running back is not what it used to be? And I'm not anti-Zeke. I went to Ohio State. Zeke went to Ohio State. I want the best for Zeke. I think he might be the best running back in football. That said, you can't give that kind of money to a running back. The offensive line and the system is what makes the back. And here, look at it. Look at the 2 running backs to get the big money the last 2 off seasons. Ezekiel Elliott and Todd Gurley. Maybe the best 2 backs in football when healthy, no doubt, both top 5 guys, but both benefiting from the system and circumstances. Do you think either would still be doing this if they were in Cincinnati or Atlanta or one of these teams who cannot figure out how to move the ball on the ground? I don't know if Atlanta's that bad. I think they are, though. You guys get the point, though. They're both in great offensive systems with excellent offensive lines, with top half of the league quarterbacks, good receivers. I mean, it's just, and you would think that Dallas would have learned, I don't know, maybe because Dallas spent that high draft pick on Zeke, you'd think they would have learned from the DeMarco Murray situation, right? He wanted the big money. They didn't give it to him. He went to Philadelphia. 1 year later, gone. I mean, it just, I don't know how long we're going to do this. You think Pittsburgh regrets letting Le'Veon Bell go to the Jets? Now, look, James Conner, a bit of a downgrade, and obviously, Erie, PA, I love you. Rep the 814. James Conner, my favorite Steeler of all time. Good guy. Happy to have got to cover him while he was down at Pitt. But Le'Veon Bell, a little bit better. But still, having James Conner instead of Le'Veon Bell with that big, what was it, $60 million, almost $60 million deal, you get better elsewhere. It's as simple as that. By the way, Le'Veon Bell averaging 51 yards a game through 5 games, 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 receiving. What's he got? 169 yards through the air. So look, I mean, Le'Veon Bell's great. He's excellent. But is he really making all that much of a difference? Is he worth that kind of money? I just don't think running backs are, and maybe we'll get to the point that they are. But I mean, the evidence right now, and if you've got any evidence that points the other way, please send it to me. You know, it's all well and good for these guys, but I just don't agree with breaking the bank for running backs in the NFL. And thing number 3 in this segment, 3 things to tell you. The Atlanta Falcons should be launched into the ocean. The franchise as a whole, I pick them every year to do well. And more often than not, they are such a disappointing group now, 1-5. And listen to this. Up next, they've got the Rams, Seahawks, and Saints. Defending NFC champs, 2 NFC contenders. Maybe they win one of those games. They'll be lucky to win one of those games. That gets them to 2-7, even if they win one. Dan Quinn, you and Jay Gruden might be taking a buddy trip together before too long. Maybe do, some elk hunting, whatever NFL coaches want to do in December. That'll be nice at a minimum. You get to spend Christmas with your family. It's the Falcons. I don't know what it is about that group and look, I know they've had some injuries, but the defense is so bad. It's kind of, I don't know. I don't have the answers. I don't watch a lot of the Falcons. I just know that I always pick them to do well. And 1-5 with Matt Ryan as your quarterback? Do you know how many fan bases would give a foot to have Matt Ryan as their quarterback? And this is the team you put around him? Anyways, that's the end of 3 Things to Tell You. It's a segment I hope you enjoyed. I might not ever do it again. I think I did one segment earlier this year. I never did again. Sometimes I just have these little things. Let's talk about another one. So this week, as far as what my friends who are also football fans and I were texting and talking about, the thing I got the most is what I thought about the Bengals potentially trading A.J. Green. One 8-year-old Jeremiah Green has been an excellent player for the Cincinnati Bengals. He is one of my favorites of all time. That said, A.J. Green has played 1 full season. He's played 16 games just once over the past 4 years. That obviously includes this year. He's been out the first 6 games. I think he missed 7 games last year. And that's the sole reason I would be fine with trading him. He's a guy who's just not been healthy, and I hope that I end up being wrong. I hope he comes back this year and never misses a game for the rest of his career. I think the world of the guy. Great receiver, obviously, great human being, and what a refreshing guy he was to have in Cincinnati after you had to deal with old Ocho Cinco for so long, who, by the way, great receiver himself, but eventually became more of a distraction to the team than an asset to the team, put himself in front of the team, and I think played a big role in why they couldn't have more success when he was there, along with Carson Palmer, T.J. Houshmandzadeh, Rudy Johnson. But I would trade A.J. Green. I would hate to do it. I don't think it will happen, by the way. The Bengals have said they're not going to do it. Now, we all know that NFL teams don't always stick to what they say. But if it happens, I am fine with it. The right options and the right assets have to come back in return, obviously. And by the way, I'm on the bandwagon now of, if someone were to call the Bengals, screw the draft picks, man. Get a solid starter in return, because that's something the Bengals are lacking right now. You know, football players who do not suck, football players who are competent on a football field. These things crucial to winning football games, and the Bengals have a serious lack of those 2 things right now. And if it is draft picks, it's got to be a 1 and a 3. I don't know, maybe 2 2s, and then like a backup player who eventually will become a starter, because in Cincinnati, everyone is hurt for the last 2 years. But I'm good with trading A.J. Green. Again, don't think it will happen. It would be massive if it did. I can't remember the last time a player of his caliber was traded. But if it happens, I'm good with it. They need players. They need a lot of players on that offensive line, at linebacker. There are at least, I would say, 6 positions where they need immediate upgrades. And that's not including the other positions where you say it'd be nice to have an upgrade, but you can get by for right now. Tyler Eifert, also a name that's, I don't want to say been out there. There's a certain NFL writer who I'm not going to call out by name because he's probably a nice guy. He's a national guy who will take potential trade scenarios. Anyone who's informed on the NFL knows, hey, losing team, good player, rebuilding, maybe they would trade this guy, and kind of takes those names and makes it sound like, teams are interested in them. Of course teams are interested in them. If you're a general manager and you're not doing your due diligence on which players are out there before the trade deadline, you probably shouldn't be an NFL general manager. So of course, people are making calls. That's what they do. That's their job. That said, I'm also fine with Tyler Eifert, the Bengals tight end who is also, I can't talk all of a sudden, also injured a lot, hasn't been this year, but also has not been a factor. If he gets traded, do what you got to do. Maybe a fresh start's the right thing for him. I have questions if in Cincinnati they don't have issues in the training room, because the amount of guys, Drake or Patrick, going to miss a month now. I mean, the amount of guys that are hurt there, what's going on with the strength and conditioning program that everyone is going down all the time? But the Bengals need linebackers. They need offensive line. Teams don't even pay attention to the Bengals linebackers anymore. I think I saw Lamar Jackson hit the second level on Sunday and look and point at one of the Bengals linebackers and laugh. That's how bad they are. They need so much help at that second level. They had to get rid of Vontaze Burfict, obviously, as good as he used to be. He's a knucklehead, and that was addition by subtraction, obviously, but they need a lot of help. And then if you do want to say get rid of A.J. Green, they've got decent receivers. They've got Tyler Boyd, John Ross, Auden Tate coming on making plays. A.J. Green, if he does get traded, it's been fun in Cincinnati, and if I'm a team, I'm calling about him. You know, he's a guy who can be a game changer, and a change of scenery might be nice for him. That said, he's saying all the right things, as you would expect. He's the man. Oh, and by the way, he's the man when it comes to being a good dude and all that, is what I meant. I don't mean he's the man in a weird, 90s way. But can we just say enough? I saw a shirt today that got tweeted into my timeline. It said, tank for Tua with Bengal stripes on it. Can we stop with the tanking? That's an NBA thing. It does not work in the NFL. You want proof it doesn't work in the NFL? Let's go back to 2015. Picks 1 and 2 of the 2015 NFL Draft. 1, Jameis Winston. 2, Marcus Mariota. 1 through 5 picks on Sunday. The other was benched for Ryan Tannehill. NFL draft picks are so far from a sure thing. Enough with the tanking. It doesn't work. Did you see that pick Tua threw against Texas A&M on Saturday? Is that an NFL throw to you? I know it's one throw. I think it was his first pick of the year. But still, I mean, the guy's had a great team around him. I hope the best for him. Seems like a nice dude. But this idea that he's the next coming is absurd. I mentioned Lamar Jackson a minute ago, too. Look, he might be as good as I've seen at running quarterbacks when it comes to not getting hit. It's like he's got a good feel for it. I kept waiting on Sunday for him to get whacked, and it never happened. He is so good at avoiding contact. That said, I saw Pro Football Talk. Mike Florio wrote an article that said he should be in the MVP conversation. And look, maybe at some point he should be, but right now he should not be. Yes, he's 4-2. Let me recap those 4 wins. 1, Miami Dolphins, garbage. 2, Washington Redskins, raw sewage. 3, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Ravens needed overtime to beat Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges, whose nickname is Duck. Good nickname. Mike Tomlin put his defense out there first, by the way, in overtime. That's what he thinks of Lamar Jackson in those crunch situations. And Lamar Jackson's 4th win came against the Cincinnati Bengals. He beat them by 6 points. Good quarterback. Good. You know what I mean. He's done well. I'm happy for him. I'm not, but I am. But let's pump the brakes. He's played 3 of the 4 worst teams in football. Going into Sunday, his wins came against teams with a combined record of 1-18. The Steelers had 1 win going into Sunday. The Bengals, Dolphins, Redskins all had 0. Those were his 4 wins. Kansas City and Cleveland, those are his 2 losses. Neither is a bad loss. I still think Cleveland wins the AFC North, by the way. They should. But, I mean, for Lamar and the Ravens, they've had See, a lot of people are talking about Cleveland has a tough start and an easier finish, which is true. They get the Bengals twice in December, by the way. For Lamar and the Ravens, it's the other way around. Here's what's up next for them. They've got Seattle next, and then the bye week. And then New England. Then the Bengals again. But then Texans, Rams, Niners, Bills. That's 6 playoff caliber teams right there of their next 7. I'm not sure all those teams will get to the playoffs. Obviously, the Bengals won't. They're the 7th and the one's out. But everyone in that group, with the exception of Cincinnati, is a playoff caliber team. So let's pump the brakes on putting a second-year quarterback in the MVP conversation in the middle of October. Baltimore's got a lot of breaks, just as the Browns have. Either Cleveland or Baltimore is going to win that division, whichever does, especially if it's Baltimore, because you can say, look, you go up against Freddie Kitchens and Zach Taylor, new head coaches. John Harbaugh, light years ahead of them, has a Super Bowl win. Obviously in Pittsburgh, they are without their franchise Hall of Fame quarterback. Baltimore's got some breaks, which is nice for a young developing quarterback. But let's remember before we go crazy that it's kind of been a cakewalk so far. They played 3 of the 4 worst teams in football. I always get fired up toward the end of the show. Look, I'm going to talk about a couple. Maybe I'll close with this. I was in Ohio over the weekend. I told you I was going to talk more about Booger McFarland, and I was planning on doing so before I was so happy how he went after the officials tonight because, no one does it. And they might disagree, but at least of what I've heard, Booger, you could tell, was mad, and rightfully so. But I was in Ohio over the weekend for a wedding. Congrats to Jess and Greg. It's a great time. And I heard from a few people at the wedding and then at a high school game I was at on Friday night. Officials suck there too, by the way. I heard from a few people they don't like Booger McFarland. And I don't get the hate there. I think he's fine. He's definitely better than Jason Witten. He's definitely an upgrade. I think it's no secret that Monday Night Football wanted Peyton Manning. That couldn't happen. I think I saw Richard Sherman said that he was offered the job, which that's a dude who someone should check on from time to time. Speaking of which, we haven't heard from Antonio Brown in a couple weeks. Where's he at? Not that I'm complaining, but that's a unstable individual. Anyways, Booger McFarland, definitely an upgrade over Jason Witten. And I think, in my opinion, definitely better than most of the guys you see on Sunday afternoons. He's not, I wouldn't put him, he's not Chris Spielman, he's not Aikman, he's not Chris Collinsworth, but he's up there in probably my top 5 or 6. I'll take him over Romo. He knows how to be quiet for more than half a second at a time. Jason Witten, that was uncomfortable. There could be a fire could break out on the field, and he would just stick to the X's and O's script of whatever he was talking about. The birds and bees talk with your parents, less awkward than listening to Jason Witten call a Monday Night Football game. I was happy that happened, though, because it kind of, so many professional athletes over the years kind of give that, remember when David Price said that the media was all nerds? And look, a lot of us are, but, and by the way, I'm not just a guy with a podcast. I used to be a professional reporter. I got paid to do this. But now I just have a podcast and I'm a loser with no friends. But anyways, they kind of realize watching Jason Witten, right? Like, this is tough. This is not an easy thing to do. You can tell that he's struggling, and he's one of the more well-spoken guys in the league when the microphones are in front of him. A lot of people don't like Booger. I like Booger. By the way, maybe temper your expectations for a grown man who voluntarily goes by the name Booger. I think he does a nice job. Calls himself Booger. That's, usually to have the nickname Booger, you've got to have a few felonies or something. Booger, grown man, goes by Booger, made it to Monday Night Football. What have you done with your life? All right, listen, this has been fun. Like I said, we're at that point in the year where we're going to learn a lot of things about a lot of different teams, and that's always an exciting time. I will try to stay on top of it to the best of my ability. If you want to chime in on Twitter, I am at Matt Edwards. That's MatteDWards. Did you guys see Brantley Gilbert on Monday Night Football last night? That was great, right? What a goober. Cool brass knuckles microphone. He's a cartoon character of himself. I hope that one day we find out that's a persona. My gosh, I made fun of him on there. Some people liked that tweet. You can check it out if you want, or you cannot. A lot of people made fun of him, but I liked mine. I don't care if you check it out. What I do care about, if you like the show, please rate it, please subscribe, tell a friend, share the link, send them a text, say, hey, listen to what this dude thinks. He's an idiot, but I kind of like him. It's better than whatever else you're listening to right now. The new Celine Dion album. I don't think she has a new album. This is not better than anything she would ever produce, by the way. But anyways, if you share it, that would make me happy. Subscribe, rate if you want to. And if you don't, that's okay too. Just here to have fun. Going to be a fun week. I'm looking forward to it. Got Broncos Chiefs starting us off on Thursday. Friday night, I will be in Evanston. I am going to the Ohio State Northwestern game, so I'll try to tweet out some cool content there if you want to check it out. I am very anti-Friday night college games because it takes away from high school football. That said, I'm still going. But people, maybe they don't realize what a big deal high school football is in Ohio and really throughout the Midwest. I'm not a fan of it, but I am going. So that'll be cool. Maybe I'll start a protest, start a hashtag, try to bring it down, and then still attend the game, get it trending on Twitter, act as if it matters. I saw on Monday, so I get on Twitter a lot, more often than I should, and I saw delete Facebook was trending, and I thought like there was another breach or something. Nope, just people don't like that Mark Zuckerberg had dinner with some conservative people, which, whatever, if that's your opinion. Do you think that starting a hashtag is going to, make a billionaire? Is he going to see that trending and be like, yeah, you know what, you guys are right? No, he's going to wait 20 minutes until you're mad about something else because you've never known real struggle like the Cincinnati Bengals, 6 weeks and no wins. You don't see them hashtagging. They keep trucking right along, baby. Going for a top 3 draft pick. Who's it going to be? I don't know if they go quarterback. We'll see what they do with Andy Dalton. This could be it for Andy. I hope Andy goes somewhere else and is very successful. He could be. He's one of those guys, right? Team around him, he's going to be fine. You saw that. Playoffs, first 5 years. Sucked in the playoffs, but, that wasn't all on him. If Jeremy hit, well, he wasn't in that game. That was A.J. McCarron. So I guess Andy only has 5 playoff appearances. Isn't that wild that the Bengals were a Jeremy Hill fumble away from beating the Steelers in the playoffs? That game, I swear to you, that's the only time in my life. When you're so angry, you have a feeling of anger flowing inside of you. Like you can feel rage from your head to your toes. And it's like you want to spontaneously combust. Do you know that feeling? If you haven't, you're not living. Anyways, I went to bed with that feeling in me, and I swear to you, this is the only time that's ever happened to me. I woke up the next morning, and before I even realized I was awake and alive, I still could feel that feeling of rage within me from that game. The Joey Porter situation. What a loser Joey Porter is. Imagine being, and I know maybe some of you are like, oh, I'm a millionaire football player. I don't care. He's an idiot. Imagine being that age, being a grown man, an alleged professional football coach, and being like, I'm going to go out here and start a fight with these dudes on the field. That'll be cool. What an idiot. I do think the Bengals find 3 or 4 wins this year, though. They've had a brutal schedule. I was telling you about the Ravens. I mean, they play them too. Not just the Ravens, the same schedule. The NFC West, very tough division. NFC West and NFC North, absolutely loaded. Bengals should start a hashtag about the NFC West. Get them out of the league. That's what you do in this country. Take issue. We need a hashtag fix officiating. That'll get it done. That's our nation's greatest challenge at this point. 2019, got to get that fixed. This is a big industry. All right, this is a Good Old Football Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Matt Edwards. I hope you have a great week.